Building a house, even if you are with someone that has built tiny houses before, you're gonna make mistakes and you're gonna have to undo them. I think I used to be a pretty impatient person. That led to just being down on myself and feeling like I couldn't do anything. But building this house and learning to just kind of be like, okay, I made a mistake. We're gonna try again and we're gonna keep trying until we figure it out. It like rewired my brain almost to build this house. I used to totally give up all the time, but not anymore. If I can do this, then I can do this and this and this. It's just one thing has led to another and my life just keeps getting better and better and I keep being happier and happier and it's awesome. Isabel. This is my tiny house and we are in Portland, Oregon. I built this tiny with my friend Jason and it took us about 2 years to build and now I've been living in it for about 2 years. I was able to find a large private property to park my tiny, which is pretty hard to do here in Portland, and it's especially spacious because I have a deck and lots of woods to roam around in, and I pay about $800 for parking here, and that includes utilities, electrical and power. I don't have Wi-Fi currently. It's a pretty sweet deal, and it's kind of a I knew somebody that knew somebody situation, so I got pretty lucky. So one of my favorite features of the outside of my home is the live edge cedar siding. I had a neighbor with a sawmill and he was able to just go pick up a couple trees and saw some cedar trees for me and gave me a really good, sweet, neighborly deal. So if you guys are ready, let's go check out the inside. Welcome. So the square footage of this home is approximately 300 square feet. It is 26 feet long by 8.5 feet wide. What I really was going for was a whimsical fairy cottage in the forest vibe. Over here in the front of the house, I chose to have 4 windows because I wanted to have lots of, natural light coming in, hanging plants. I plan to have more plants in the future. One really cool aspect that's up here, this doorknob in particular, came from a Portland institution named Hippo Hardware. They are about 100 or more years old, both of these pieces. The arched door really fed into the whimsical forest fairy vibe. Jason and I, the guy who built it with me, we built the door. He said we can't go full round like we're in the Shire, but we can make an arched door. So I was super happy about that. Behind here, I have a expanding ladder that I use to access the loft up here. I do have future plans to mount it to the ceiling right here, so it's not just like leaning up against the wall. The projects just keep coming. Over here, this space is both a dining space and a creative space. This table can double in size for sewing or just bigger projects. I have these sweet little chairs right here that are solid wood and rattan that unfold, so save some space in having chairs. All right. I just want to show you guys an example of some of the things that I've made. So this is a little vest that I thrifted and have just sewn like wavy patches on it. I also make little like designed patches. Over here, I have an example of a hat that I really love. It's just like little newsboy caps. I love those. Patches, buttons, all sorts of cute stuff. When you first enter the home, it's the living room area. I managed to fit 2 pieces of furniture aside from the table and chairs, which is pretty surprising. I have this very small couch, but it works for the space, and this very comfy armchair that was a side of the road find. Pretty proud of this one. And then we have the wood stove. This is a tiny wood stove by Dwarf Stoves, and it works great for this space. I had to put a heat shield behind it. These are just metal ceiling tiles, and I took a piece of copper tubing, cut 1-inch sections, and so it made a 1-inch gap from the wall to make a heat shield. Very easy. It took me just a few minutes. So moving along, this is the kitchen space. I have chopping block countertops. There are future plans for sparkly resin on top to kind of preserve this because it's getting pretty beat up already. This is actually a gas stove and oven that are made for boats. It was a pretty good size for this space, and I love cooking with gas. It's the best. The shelves in the home come from spare wood from the exterior siding, and I cut off the live edge and made them into like a wavy cloud shape. I really like having the exposed everything. The shelves instead of cabinets, I feel that it makes the space feel more open. I also hate digging for stuff in cabinets. I like being able to just see it and grab it, access it, and that's really why I went with that. Lower storage in the kitchen, I went with a drawer system for my pantry. It's just me and my cat, so I didn't need a whole lot of space, so I just have the 2 drawers. I put pots and pans under the stove naturally, and silverware first over here. I've always wanted a farmhouse sink, and it is a big sink, but when you only have 1 sink, and no dishwasher, it's pretty great. This industrial faucet is something I also really enjoy, and in copper. Like I said, I love copper. Another thing I want to kind of show off in here is my Beast blender, because it's just so aesthetically pleasing for a blender, and when all of your things are exposed, you kind of have to keep with like the color palette. Beast blender is beautiful and really good. There's 3 more drawers over here and the typical under the sink stuff. There's cute little details for the knobs. Here I have brass dragonflies, and under the stove for the knobs I have little brass snails because I love snails and dragonflies. And on the other side we have my fridge. It is a medium-sized fridge, I would say. I went with the retro look. I was really excited about that. This is my closet, which I didn't plan on being exposed, but actually I'm kind of fine with it. I thought it might make my clothes smell like food, but it doesn't. Here under the stairs is my dresser area for linens and clothing. So it is multifunctional, being that my dresser is also the platform and turn for the stairs. So moving towards the back of the home, we have the bathroom. And again, we have the arched doorway to keep in theme. I don't have a door because I didn't feel like I had the space for it to open. There are also pocket doors, but that would have taken up more space in the bathroom, which, as you can see, I have a giant bathtub that I prioritized the space for. We have some really lovely details here in the corner of the bathroom that are both for decoration and utility. Again, we have the exposed shelves. Here I have my jewelry, towels up top, and soap and shampoo over here. And the reason I have them in these places is so when I'm in the shower, I just reach right here. I don't have to have anything hanging in the shower. I like to have a big space in the shower. Over here I have some alcoves that mainly serve as little places for decoration. I have just curated so many little things over the years that they have to have a home of their own. On this side of the bathroom, I have this little lamp that I added is USB rechargeable because it's just pretty dim in here. The lights on the sides are on dimmers and have the yellow Edison bulbs. It's just kind of dark in here, especially since I have more clothes over here because I did really not account for the amount of clothes that I have, but don't want to give them up just yet, even though I have downsized a lot. Along this back wall, there are wall-to-wall 2 shelves that have like backup like facial products, lotions, and stuff like that. Something that really needs to be accounted for is the level of humidity in tiny homes, especially if you go for wood walls and floors, ceilings, everything. Tiny homes are really susceptible to mold and mildew. There's this device in the corner of the bathroom that monitors the level of humidity and a fan that goes to the outside, and so it'll cut on at a certain level to kind of suck that humidity out so I don't get mold and mildew in here. And so far, so good. So I'm 36. I work in child welfare. I try to be creative in every way that I can be, like in the way I write, the way I dress. Just you can be creative with anything. I don't think I've ever expressed myself more or better than this. And I think I got to know myself better through building a space that is completely of my own making. I have ADHD. I have obsessive compulsive personality disorder, or OCPD, which is different from OCD. OCD a lot of times is like object-based and like this kind of very specific irrational fear, where obsessive compulsive personality disorder is a lot of patterns, rituals, and then like some strong beliefs about like correlations. My OCPD manifested in a need for strict adherence to a color palette. And then the kind of like layered textural thing. So the layering thing isn't just for fashion, it's actually like it's almost like a compression vest kind of situation. Like I used to have panic attacks before I went to work and I didn't know why. I would change my outfit again and again and again to the point like I would actually just like burst into tears, can't go to work. It's like I'm in my 20s, like why is that a thing? And in my 30s, I mean, it's me in therapy and just like learning on my own. It's like a long, windy journey to figure it out, but it makes so much sense and it helps because it's like now I know what I'm working with, and that level of self-acceptance and self-understanding is like so liberating, and then you can kind of harness it. So now I feel like it's my superpower. Another aspect of the build that was really enjoyable for me was working with the wood itself and bringing out the hardwoods. I just sanded until I could see like little circles and stuff like that. And then I made the edges all rounded and wavy because I really prefer a rounded edge instead of a square edge. This post is utilized to hold up the extension that we put on the bedroom loft that you'll see later. It also is pretty useful for rubbing knots in my back and, you know, just like a good lean. Over here, more shelves. We have some sewing supplies. I love sweatshirts, hoodies, and hats, and just head decor in general. Looking up, we have one of the 3 skylights in the home. They can open. Jason actually had this idea of putting an herb garden in like a trough situation on a pulley system so I could water it and then it could, you know, benefit from the natural lighting that we get in the home. The stair design is an alternating step design. This saves space. You would think that the alternating stairs might like throw you off, but honestly, Jason asked me, he's like, do you typically lead with your right foot or your left foot? And I said, I think I lead with my right foot. So we did right, left, all the way up. We put in little handrails just in case. My cat found it very easy to go up and down the stairs, but he climbs trees, so it's going to be easy for him. Up the stairs, we have the bedroom loft. Part of the design of the bedroom loft that I requested specifically was an extension that I mentioned earlier, the reason for the post in the kitchen. And I, requested this extension for my stuff. I got a lot of stuff. Live kind of a maximalist lifestyle in a small space. So I have windows on either side of the loft and then one at the end. And a big skylight. The biggest skylight of the home is in here. I have rigged up this little 2 curtain rod system and a thick piece of velvet to cover it when I want it to be darker in here. Another reason I chose to have skylights is to release kind of like the heat that can be built up in the home, either from the wood stove or from cooking. It also can get kind of smoky sometimes when I cook. So for the smoke alarm to not go off every single time, I tend to think ahead of time and pop this one open and prop the door open a little bit. One thing that I really would suggest for people that are building their own tiny home is to really think about the lighting placement of your home, especially in the bedroom loft if you have a bedroom loft, because I noticed a while after the fact that if I want to read in bed, I did not put lights behind me right here or on the wall, but rather in front, and so they cast a shadow on my book instead of shining on my book. So that is definitely a thing that I would suggest to really consider. Prioritize where you spend the most time in your home. If it's in a dining area, make that space bigger. If it's, in your bedroom area, prioritize that. I prioritized having a giant tub and not having a sink in the bathroom because there's a sink like 3 feet away. So why have 2 sinks, My kind of quick fix for not being able to read with the overhead lights was to just put a very regular sized lamp up here. I have another USB rechargeable lamp over here. For anyone that tends to carry around a lot of stuff, I have here the upstairs, downstairs basket. I believe it's an old egg basket because it only opens up on one side. But yeah, it's just a little wire basket that whenever, in the morning, I got to bring down my phones, my water bottle, whatever, my knickknacks, my hair bands, whatever I have upstairs and want to bring downstairs. Instead of making several trips, I just put it all in the basket and take it downstairs. I've never owned a home before, so this is my first owned living space. And so I've never had the freedom to do whatever I wanted with a home. So I'm constantly dreaming up new ways to organize, decorate, and utilize this space. And for a single person in my generation, I feel like the most practical thing to do was to build a tiny home. And I am allowed to express myself in whatever way I want. And that is one of my favorite aspects of owning my own tiny home. So the guy that helped me build my house, I found him on Facebook Marketplace when I was thinking that I was just gonna buy a tiny house. I didn't think building one immediately, I was just like, I'll buy a tiny house. And he was selling one. I went and checked it out. It was too small for me. I was like, I want tiny, but not that tiny. He said, well, I can build you something for your budget. And then I said, I'll do you one better. I'll rent this one from you and then live on your property. So you're making rent off me while we are building the house, because I have to be allowed to help and be involved in the design and all that, if you're okay with that. And he was. And so we built a house together. My tiny house cost, with labor and everything was about $78,000. I got a $50,000 loan, and then the rest, I just worked 2 jobs and paid for it. Living in Portland is awesome, but very expensive. When I was looking at apartments, it was like $1,600, $1,800 for a studio or a really kind of crappy 1-bedroom anywhere in Portland, out in the suburbs too. But I found a loophole, as I like to say, in building a tiny house and just having to pay land rent. I got a pretty sweet deal with this place. I mean, I got a view, a deck, and it's like no utilities or anything, flat rate, and like my house payment is barely anything. So yeah, it makes it way more affordable than renting for sure. The biggest thing is like, I don't have to commit to buying something that's set on land. I mean, I don't know where I want to live for a long period of time. I've just kind of been like a wandering loner. A tiny house on wheels kind of makes sense for me. Of course, when I was younger, like I really wanted friends, and I was kind of a people pleaser for it, and that didn't bring anything good into my life. And then I was just like, whatever, I guess I'm gonna accept my fate that I'm just like this loner. But now I have a bunch of friends because I accepted my fate as a loner.
Thanks for stopping by Tiny House Expedition. I'm Alexis.
And I'm Christian, and this is our DIY tiny house on our homestead in Oregon.
Looking for more tiny inspiration? Watch these videos. But if you're looking for something specific, visit our channel homepage to browse tiny homes by category.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Hope to see you soon.